The war is real. And part of the war involves that, again, Roswell was in 1947, right at the end of World War II. And there have been massive programs involving trillions and trillions of dollars that built underground facilities. There's, according to Pete Peterson, something like 250 of them around the Earth. There's a sub-shuttle system. There's an underground train system that uses pneumatic pressure, an air pressure system. It goes very fast to transport people from one city underground to another. And these cities can hold up to 65,000 people. They have the ability to be powered by nuclear submarines. The original plan by the elite, so-called elite, was that they were going to nuke the surface of the planet, and then there's all these tunnels that they would have, these elevator shafts in various locations that take them underground. I think actually some of the new posts that we'll talk about on Sunday had some allusions to this in there, believe it or not. You go into these elevator shafts, you go underground into these underground bases, nuclear submarines fire off their ordnance, and now they've got breeder reactors on them, but they don't have any more weapons to fire. They then park into these sockets along the coast. It's like plugging in a plug to a wall outlet, and now the breeder reactor inside the nuclear sub is going to power these underground cities. And they can transport materials from one city to another underground using this so-called sub-shuttle system. So it sounds crazy, it sounds dubious, but again, we are living in an illusion. You don't realize how big this thing really is. I'm probably just about the only prominent speaker out there who's ever had this much access to whistleblowers. I mean, Dr. Stephen Greer's done a great job. He's had a number of whistleblowers. I've also gotten a lot of unique information from people who didn't want to talk to Greer. They only wanted to talk to me. Some of them just said they didn't trust Greer for whatever reason. That's just reality. So they've come forward. Project Camelot brought a lot of these people forward. Project Camelot brought Pete Peterson forward. Those videos are very amazing. And we are not going to stay in the dark for much longer. According to Pete Peterson and many other insiders, including Uncle Jack from Australia, who I impersonate as call him the geezer, we're dealing with underground and off-planet bases. There's many of them on the moon. There's many of them on Mars. They're throughout our solar system and 65 other locations throughout the galaxy, just for America, in which people in the military who are brought in on the highest level of secrecy, they're sworn to secrecy, and they threaten you. They'll run a drill through your hand if you talk, so nobody wants to talk. They're all threatened. They're all under surveillance. So people keep really quiet. You have to almost be suicidal to want to talk, honestly. But what they're told is, yeah, we have this very real situation, and then they sign up, they give their rights away. A lot of them, there was a brain drain in the 1950s where many of the cream of the crop, I see a bunch of donations going by. Carl Moffat, F.O. Fortin, Violet Force, thank you all for donating. I really appreciate it. So what we hear is that in the 1950s, there was a brain drain. 85% of the scientists they brought in were from other countries, not America. And they brought in 24 million people, I believe is what Pete told me. They were all brought underground or off planet. Again, there's a lot of stuff on the moon. There's a lot of stuff on Mars. And Pete also said there are entire fleets of ships that hide behind the moon. There's like a cone behind the moon that can't be seen from the Earth. Another thing Pete said is that the moon looks like Manhattan on the dark side. And there's many, many ET civilizations there. So when you go into these secret bases, underground or off planet, you're dealing directly with human extraterrestrials. Now, some of them are fourth density, as Law of One would call it, which means they have still got an evolutionary body. They evolved from earlier forms. So as they evolve into fourth density, they typically get a bigger head, bigger eyes, but a surprising number of them look human. One of Dr. Stephen Greer's insiders at the Disclosure Project in 2001, which I went to personally, was Sergeant Clifford Stone, and he had a field manual that was given to him by a naval admiral who was read into all this stuff, and it had very detailed descriptions of 57 different varieties of human ETs, that are visiting our Earth, crashing their ships here. It shows you what their ships look like, what their faces look like, where we know they came from, various details about them. In case you encounter this type of ship, you can expect this being inside. And a surprisingly large number of them are actually human-looking. That's a very, very provocative thing. We don't understand this yet. We don't realize that these human ETs are actually not the exception but the rule. They're not usually scary looking, although we do have insectoids, we do have reptilians, and we do have grays. But that's pretty much, and also Henry Deacon, another Camelot insider, told me there are aquatic types of people as well. He said that the Nomo that visited this particular tribe of Mali in Africa, as described in Robert Temple's book, The Serious Mystery, the Nomo actually are real. They have black eyes. They have eyebrows that are made of these little spikes. Their skin is kind of a bluish color, and they are aquatic humanoids. They actually have fish-like features. They have webbing between their hands and feet. They have, a fish-like body, scales, that kind of thing. So this is something that is astoundingly redundant. Skeptics who don't want to believe this simply have not experienced all of the things I've experienced. I do have a really good memory when something interests me. If I'm really excited by what I'm hearing, I'm probably going to remember it. And I've had multiple insiders tell me stories that correlate in amazing ways. When we brought Uncle Jack over from Australia for a Project Camelot event, I actually secretly whisked him away to Garden Valley, Idaho to meet with Pete Peterson in person. That was amazing because they exchanged conversation that was very provocative, that clearly showed they both were talking about the same thing. There's only about 3,000 people here on Earth who are read in at cosmic top secret level, which is, again, 35 levels of need to know above the President of the United States. That means Trump doesn't know about this. Hillary and Bill Clinton didn't know about this. Obama didn't know about this. And when you get to the really deepest level of the secrecy, it's what Uncle Jack was talking about, which is that there's two types of deep state, if you will, or the I word that has to do with something being illuminated. You know what I'm talking about. I don't want to say that one either. There's a space program, and then there's a terrestrial cabal. The space cabal is incredibly different, and nobody in the space cabal ever talks to the people in terrestrial cabal. The people in terrestrial cabal, and this is the way the evil aliens like it, by the way, they don't ever want the people in terrestrial cabal knowing that the space cabal exists. So the people in the terrestrial cabal will never have any idea that this space version exists. The Roths, as you know, that's the color red. We've talked about them many times. That's who he was working for. They, in fact, work under the reptilians, the Draco reptilians who run this space program on the evil side. And Uncle Jack personally told me that he had been to some 2,000 different off-planet locations and that he saw hundreds and hundreds of different types of extraterrestrials. They have a portal system that they use, and a lot of what he was doing was reinforcing trade deals. He told me that there was an orange fungus that they were growing for a particular extraterrestrial race. It was very prized for them. It gave them spiritual abilities, but it's very, very difficult and takes a long time to grow this stuff. So that's one of the things they were doing, is growing this, doing it exactly the right way, and they got paid very well for it. A lot of what happens is trade. There will be trade for gold. So we as in people on Earth in these secret groups, gave away a lot of our gold to these evil extraterrestrial groups in exchange for things like materializers, which would essentially be 3D printers for food. So if you work at Area 51, you can actually have printed meals, and they apparently can be very delicious, and you can get any type of food you want, and the machine prints it for you, and it comes out at the right temperature, and it tastes right, and everything else. So there are many people who are in these programs. Again, off-planet is very different than on-planet. There's only about 3,000 people on Earth, so I was told by one insider, who really know what's going on at the cosmic top secret level. But within that level, they are working in aerospace, they're designing spaceships, they're flying in spaceships, and they're interacting directly with extraterrestrials in these underground facilities.